word out about your lodge. Come on in, brothers. Think about this for a second, my brothers. And this is kind of a quick history lesson. It took radio 38 years to reach 50 million people. That's the approximate population of the United Kingdom. Right? 38 years. It took television 14 years to accomplish the same thing. The internet did it in 4. I want you to think about that. The internet did it in 4. We are moving faster today in terms of communication than we have ever moved. All right? And it's getting faster, it seems, every day. And let's be honest, Freemasonry may seem kind of like a quaint anachronism in this fast-moving world. I mean, after all, depending upon who you listen to or who you believe, we've been in existence for somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 years. Right? But here's the kicker. Even in this fast-paced world, the traditions of Freemasonry still have value. They still have value. But they're not going to have value if we don't communicate them, if we continue to rely on the traditional ways of doing things. And so that's why I'm here to talk to you about social media and how you can make social media work best for you. So, social media is totally pervasive in today's world. It's not unusual, like if you look at me, I have a Twitter account, I have a Facebook account, I have a LinkedIn account. Now all those are designed for specific purposes. My Twitter account is used to quickly communicate thoughts to a very specific audience. My Facebook account is used to basically to share my life, for lack of a better term, to a broad-based audience. And my LinkedIn account is designed to communicate to my professional community. I also have a blog. And my blog basically is a diary. And it's my thoughts on the fraternity. And I'm finding that as I share my life, and as I share my thoughts, and as I share my profession, and all my ruminations online, I'm getting a lot of feedback from a lot of sources. More than I ever did in the traditional sense of putting my resume out there, you know, writing newspaper articles or anything along those lines. And so, if it works for me, I submit to you, if it works for the individual, it can work for the lodge. Because you can use social media in a variety of ways. Like one, you can interact with your members. Not just the members of your lodge, but in your local community. Because guess what? Your cities have Facebook pages. Your counties have Facebook pages. A lot of your businesses have Facebook pages. A lot of them also have Twitters. A lot of them also have LinkedIns. I mean, to give you an idea, I got my best friend a job with the Lake Washington School District because of my LinkedIn account. You can use Facebook to inform, and I'm going to talk a little bit later on about the calendar feature of Facebook, how you can use that to help inform your brethren of what's happening. And you know what else you can do? You can use it for fundraising. A lot of people have used Facebook to help raise money. Like, for example, if you have a link to PayPal, you can broadcast the fact that, hey, look, we're having this scholarship dinner, and you can pay via a link that we're going to provide to our PayPal account. And one thing's interesting about that, when you get sometimes electronic payment, some of those people who pay electronically don't come to the event. Right? But they're happy to support. Let me give you a personal example. At the risk of self-aggrandizement, my wife and I are consistently top 100 fundraisers for Puget Sound Home for the Cure. Consistently. And the only thing we do is email and Facebook. That's the only thing we do to raise money. So yes, you can use Facebook as a way to leverage your fundraising. So, while social media is powerful, you have to remember that there are multiple platforms, and you have to be willing to not just fall in love with something just because it's convenient. You know, we do that. Oh, we'll just send out the trestle board electronically because the majority of people get that. What happens when you do that? You lose connection to certain brethren, don't you? Okay. So you can't ignore their various different ways of communication. So yes, use your social media, but don't be afraid to pick up the phone. All right? How often, for those of us who have Facebook, all of a sudden see a post that's, gosh, gee, did you really have to put that online? How about a phone call instead? So don't be, I know people are, what is this that people are waking up with the phone call now? You know, or the face-to-face thing. We're kind of scared to deal with people face-to-face. So there are certain things that work on there and certain things that don't work on there. So regardless of your audience for social media, here's what we're looking at. Who are your principal audiences? One, obviously the lodge, right? Your lodge is the primary audience. You want to communicate what's happening in your lodge with the lodge. King Solomon Lodge, for example, we have the junior warden of King Solomon right here, and they are constantly updating their Facebook site to show when their next degree is. And not only that, they're inviting people to attend their degree. And you know what's funny? Some of the things is that they'll send a broad-based invitation, and of course there are ladies on their page, and the ladies go, I can't come. But they're also going to say, well, we have a dinner beforehand. Please come to the dinner. And trust me, they've got some great family involvement there at King Solomon. Great family involvement. Even though there are some things the ladies are invited to that, their participation is limited to a certain point. The Masonic community. Yes, we are the Blue Lodge, but there's this huge Masonic family, isn't there? You've got the Shrine, you've got the York Rite, you've got the Scottish Rite, you've got the youth groups, you've got the ladies groups. They want to know what you're doing. And they want to be part of what you're doing, but they need to know what you're doing. And if you just rely on a trestle board, and what's one of the issues we have with trestle boards? We send them out and sometimes the event has already happened. Right? We send out an invitation, but that group is already met. So if they read it, they're going to read it after the fact. The nice thing about social media is that, guess what? Everything's current. Because they know when it's happening. But here's the thing, and I'm going to say this again later on. Don't post something the day before hoping that by some miracle everybody's going to show up. Right? You still got to give due and timely notice. But it still buttresses my point, does it not? It's simply this. Due and timely notice is not receiving something 2 weeks after it's happened. But we fall into that trap, don't we? And the broader community. We host scholarship nights, right? Shouldn't we be telling the broader community that we're doing that? But all too often, what do we see at our scholarship events? We see the parents, maybe. We see the kid. And every so now and then we don't see the kid, because I've been to some of those. We see the brethren, but that's all we see. Do we see anyone else? I was at the District 28 meeting last week. And I was fascinated to listen to the report of I believe it's the junior warden of Moses Lake Lodge, talking about all the growth that's happening in Ephrata. Because of their kilowatt hours, they're attracting, their low kilowatt hours for electricity, they're attracting all these people. All these people. And I'm looking around the room, and I'm noticing that it's an average attendance at a district meeting. And I asked, because I'm asked to make remarks to whenever they do that, I asked, so with this opportunity that's fallen into your lap, with all these people and all these businesses relocating to your town, what are you doing with it? Jaws were dropping all over the place. Because again, what are you doing with it? If you have opportunities, social media is a great way to communicate to the outside world what you're doing, so that way they can be interested in what you're doing. Now granted, that doesn't mean they're going to get interested right away. Because one thing's for certain, one of the main things you should learn about communication through any venue is simply this: it has to be consistent. You can't just throw a message out there once and hope that people will come. You know, this is not Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. You've got to build it, promote it again, and keep promoting it. And again, the social media method is a great way to communicate this. Now, I'm not saying everybody should drop into Facebook, though I believe they should, but I am saying that if you miss the boat on social media, you're missing a huge boat. And I'm going to show you why in a little bit. So, I want to hear from you. I'm going to go to each table, because I thought I could do this with the paper thing, but it just took too much time. Let's start over here. Internally, what is your primary source of communication?
Little letter sent out by Brother Rich Lathrop called the What's Happening.
Okay, so kind of a what's happening letter?
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's about it.
Okay. See what the problem is when you only have one form of communication? Okay, if there's a timeliness issue, right? But on top of that, there are people who, believe it or not, just don't open mail. Right? They see something, okay, I'll get to it, and they cast it aside. They'll get to the important stuff like the electrical bill, the water bill, the cable bill. And then, oh, look, I have this over here, and they'll pick it up, and what happens? It's dated.
Something else I did, we have a corned beef and cabbage this coming Thursday, which is a huge event for Tonano's Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went ahead and did a Facebook invite, and the numbers at this point versus last year are almost double.
Again, see? What do you see what he said? He created a Facebook invite for a corned beef and cabbage feed, and the numbers doubled over the previous year. Now, there may be people who don't show, but guess what? The awareness of the event has been increased, right?
Substantial.
How about here? What is your primary source of internal communication?
What we do internally at our lodge is we use Facebook to promote that we have a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
The last couple of years I was doing the secretary's job. So what I did is I did the Facebook, and that worked out some. Then we had our lodge cards. We would send out cards, but we don't have a Twitter account. We don't have a LinkedIn account.
Okay, that's fine. But the point being is you use more than one way of communicating. You have the Facebook, but you also took the time to send out letters or send out cards, and that's a good thing. Again, like I said, not everybody has connectivity, right? But at the same time, those people who prefer, because we had a discussion earlier in the previous class about generational differences. There are certain generations that like paper, that like to open an envelope, because something. It's for some cases they feel important when that happens. And you don't want to run away from that. Back there, internally.
Well, we have our senior deacon and our junior and senior wardens here for this conference, and all three of us are on the same page about kicking everything up several notches. Currently, we post events on the Facebook calendar.
Mm-hmm.
It functions as internal communication. We have a web page, email from our secretary. I get one of those, and that it's high priority in my opinion.
Great.
The web page, I think the problem with the web pages is that the gatekeeper, unless they're actively involved and really on top of things, they become a gatekeeper and it becomes stale, flaccid, and it's like the worst thing in the world is to go to a page that's been updated, 3 or 4 years ago. It's worse than, you're better off having nothing.
And that's true. If your Facebook page is out of date, you are dead on the internet.
Yeah.
Okay?
So we're on board with
And here's the nice thing about this. A lot of people say, well, Facebook Facebook isn't difficult at all. But here's the interesting thing to understand about Facebook. Facebook pages are updated more frequently than websites. I don't care what it is. Facebook pages are updated more frequently than websites. Why? Because they're easy to update. You go in, type in, this is your status, this is your event, boom, it pops up. With a website, if you're doing HTML, you got to go in and do the recoding, or if you're like my lodge, we have a website that's quasi-static. You have to go in and you have to make changes and then upload it. And heaven forbid you should forget, to put an end tag or something like that. Then you've got this long run-on sentence. So yeah, you're right. But if you're going to have, but the same thing applies for Facebook pages that applies for websites. If you're not engaging, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit, if you're not engaging your viewers, you're dead. That's the bottom, you've got to be active. Yes?
Well, how do you maintain continuity from one year to the next? Because if you have someone who is exceptionally diligent and really focused on it, then for whatever reason they move, or, how do you keep that going in a forward significant direction?
Well, the question has to do with how do you keep things going. How do you keep things moving along? I'll talk about that a little bit. Okay. What about here? Internally. What do you guys do?
My launch does email and phones primarily, and then I manage the Facebook page.
So email and phones, again, multiple ways of getting things done. All right? See, the takeaway from this is that you have to have multiple ways of doing things. All right? You can't just fall in love with one way of doing it. Because the communication is serious business. All right? Because here's the line I heard. The fallacy of communication is that somebody actually received the message. All right? You have to do whatever you can to ensure that that message was actually received. So that's why you just don't do one form of communication, and the other thing, you don't do communication one time. All right? You don't do communication one time, you do it consistently and diligently. All right? Because especially with the number of Gen X and Gen Y people we're bringing into the table, short attention span. That's just the way it is, because think about it, you got the Twitter with 140 characters, they're moving on to something else. There's multiple distractions, you have to make sure that you're getting the message out. Now, what about externally? Does anybody do anything differently externally? In other words, communicating to the public.
Put a small ad in the local paper.
Small ad in the paper? Okay, that's okay. I got no objection to that. Anybody else?
We've done ads in the papers for different things we've done. We've had, luckily our newspaper editor is also Masons, so we...
It's always handy.
Into the Facebook books presentations. We've also got a PowerPoint slide that shows the local theater because they have a local ballroom thing.
Oh, so you're part of what we call the pylon sign that rotates out?
Yep.
Like that a lot. What do we got back there?
Well, we do TV talk shows, and then we do some radio interviews where they talk to us on the radio about up-and-coming events.
Love that.
So, yeah, that works really well.
Love that. Anything here? Externally?
Pages and how I vote.
Okay. Here's the thing with external communication. It doesn't have to be over the top. You just need to put it out there. So if your lodge has like a reader board, for example, is it up to date? How many reader boards do we see that are not up to date? And what's the thing? You walk by and go, we really should update that thing. And it's not updated. You gotta update your reader board. One of the greatest ways to communicate externally? Where are your square and compasses? Where are your square and compasses? It's not that hard to do.
Are you asking or telling me?
No, you're just wearing your square and compasses, and guess what? People are coming to you, and they go, "Oh, look at that! You're amazing." Just little things.
I just have one comment about wearing a square and compasses. So our lodge and myself, we try to really get people involved in working with the March of Dimes, and so I have been doing it for years. And I went to the March of Dimes, and one year I just happened to be wearing my square and compasses, and I could not believe how many Masons that I met on this walk that were just there with their families or their companies or whatever. And I was like, well, why do we not have a team? I mean, there was probably 40 or 50 Masons that I would have never known was there unless I was wearing my square and compasses, and it was just like we kind of impromptu formed our own little group there. So it really makes a difference to have other people see that you're out in the community and get involved in.
Which reminds me, we have two lodges, actually two groups of lodges. One in Vancouver and one in Spokane that participate in American Cancer Society walks. They wear their square and compasses. They have, I don't know if you've ever been to an ACS event, but they have a little storefront called at least one in Vancouver, called Freemasons for the Cure. And it's a great way to show off the craft. Because one of the things we also heard in the previous class was this, and I'm paraphrasing, it's one thing to say what we do, it's another thing to show it. All right? Because while the bulk of this presentation is going to deal with electronic social media, there is also social media, right?
Actually showing up.
Nothing beats face-to-face, grip and grin. Nothing. Okay? I want you to think about this. Only one man was elected president by sitting on his doorstep. Everyone else who ran traveled the country. So, let's talk about this thing called Facebook. What is this thing called Facebook? Well, in short, Facebook is the world's most popular social networking website. And it makes it easier for you to connect and share with your family and friends online. Facebook, let's be honest, has dramatically changed the way that people communicate. All right? It's not unusual for me to make a Facebook post and me to get comments almost instantaneously from literally all over the world. Literally all over the world. Sometimes it can be something as simple as somebody clicking the like button, letting me know that they like the picture, or somebody actually making a comment to what I did or what I showed. Or people just eager to find out, and because I know who my quote-unquote Facebook stalkers are. They're the people who are eager to see what's coming up next. Okay? So, how do we leverage this thing called Facebook? Well, first things first, we have to understand that there is value to having a Facebook page. Number one, every 20 minutes, there are almost 2 million status updates. Facebook Mobile will post that on there, and people will want to be engaged. And typically speaking, on the low end, about 300 people will see that. On the high end, as many as 1,900 people have seen. But here's the other thing that happens. If it's something that's of special interest, they will share that with their friends, and you know what happens? It branches, right? So I put it on the page, you decide that's great, I think I'll share it with my network. Somebody on your network goes, this is cool, I'll share with my network. Let me put this in perspective. Our number 2 audience is Azerbaijan. Our number 2 audience on our Facebook page is in Azerbaijan.
Why?
I have no idea.
Azerbaijan,
Yeah. I have no idea why.
part of the former Soviet Union.
Yeah. I have no idea why. But it's worked its way out there. It's amazing to me. Now, while I'm telling you to post more than once, don't go crazy and post like 4 or 5 things in 1 hour. That's what's called information overload. Okay? Be judicious about what you post. Okay? And by the way, we're on the subject of being engaging. Don't post. You know, this is what we say in the online world. Don't drunk Facebook post. Okay? And what I mean by that is simply this. If you all of a sudden something has happened and you want to air some dirty laundry, it's really easy to do, and all of a sudden you can say, oh my gosh, I made a mistake, so you delete it. Guess what? Nothing's ever deleted from the internet. Nothing. Because all it takes for one person to see it, and then it starts moving its way around. So if you have dirty laundry, or if you have an issue or something like that, don't post that. That'll turn off people better, faster than than most people will recognize. But more importantly, what it'll do, it can create divides within your lodge, right? Because you've posted something that probably shouldn't have gone online, that probably should have been taken care of, face to face, right? So don't, what we call drunk Facebook post. Now, there's another way that you can do this. There's an app, and I'm going to get to the app, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, that allow you to set up your post in advance. So that way if you're ultra inspired at the beginning of the week, you can get all those posts set up to show up at a certain time. And then basically they'll show up at that time. And it looks like, oh God, look, he's really active. He's on there all the time.
He's been dead for 2 years.
Yeah. Kind of like L. Ron Hubbard, right? The guy writes books like you. Really? Okay.
So when are you going to get that information to us?
I'm going to put up a video.
Okay.
Now, the other thing is, here's a really easy thing that you can do to get the stuff going. Instead of you coming up with a creative post, have other people come up with a post for you. What do I mean by that? Ask a question. Your post is a question. For example, I have Dean Altman, the membership director at the Scottish Rite. He ends all his emails with this. Oh, by the way, what's happening in your neck of the Masonic Woods? Simple question, right? By the way, what's happening in your neck of the Masonic Woods? And you'd be surprised the replies back that you get. The youth groups will say, we've got this going. Your star will say, we've got this going. And it just opens up the dialogue. And you've got this engaging post, and all you did was ask a question. Right? You didn't have to come up with anything interesting or fascinating or do research on the internet and find out what happened this day in history. Just ask a simple question. What's happening in your neck of the Masonic Woods? Yes, Sean?
A lot of the Bethels in our area have ended their meetings with a quote of the day.
Mhm.
And I've actually gotten a lot of the Honor Queens to start posting their quote of the day at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, that's a great thing. So if something is, so if you hear that, it's not unusual to hear that kind of thing. The gentleman who made the quote last night, if you get what you got, that kind of thing, they posted that on their Facebook page last night.
And the first person that saw it
It was me, and I replied, and I challenged them. Okay, I said, okay, what are you going to do about it? So if you hear something interesting tonight, post it. If you don't have to be, this creative individual. What's the old line? Plagiarism is the sincerest form of flattery. Okay? So along those lines, you want to have a posting strategy. Think about it. You are not going to go into your term as master without a strategy, are you? You're going to have a plan of action. You should have a plan of action with respect to your postings on Facebook. Otherwise, you are doomed to failure. Guess what? Let's look at the parallel. If you go into your year as master without a plan of action, you are doomed to failure. So you have to have some sort of a strategy. So, first things first. You need to know what kind of identity and tone you want to have, okay? One of the complaints that I got when I took over the Facebook page was, God, there's a lot of incendiary stuff on Facebook. I want to change that. Take a softer tone. So one of the things that I did was I started this, okay, what are people most interested in when it comes to Freemasonry? Fellowship and education. Well, it's kind of tough to do fellowship online, but education's real easy. So for those of you who have seen the Grand Lodge Facebook page, you've noticed interesting historical tidbits. Some stuff global, some stuff national, some stuff right here in our little state. And everybody's wondering, gosh, where does Jim find the time to do all that? History.com, this day in history. Or historylink.org, which is the Washington history page. Now, that does take a little bit of research, because if I see a name that's interesting, I've got to look it up and see if that man's a Mason, right? Because it's easy to say that, yes, brother so-and-so did this, but then you find out that he was never a brother at all. Right? And then what do you do? And there are just certain things that pop up that make things interesting. And it's really not that hard, but so that's been my strategy. The other strategy that I've used is this. If you've got a trestle board, share it with me. And I will share it with everyone else on the Facebook page. And guess what? You know what that means? That means your trestle board has just gone viral. It'll be read by somebody in Azerbaijan. Again, I don't know why.
He's learning English.
He must be learning English or something like that. Okay? Your content, okay? Make sure you have consistent content. Right now I've gone with history, and I've gone with trestle boards, and I've gone with celebrations. Some of you have noticed the celebrations that I have of past Grand Masters on their birthday. Right now I'm working with living past Grand Masters. Over the next couple of years I'll start talking about all past Grand Masters and sharing their message. And how many of you had a chance to look at their messages? Aren't those the neatest things? Their perspective on the craft back when they were Grand Master. It's a fantastic thing to read and understand and see. I also posted stuff from the Conference of Grand Masters. There are Grand Masters all over the state that are all over this jurisdiction, not actually, all over the United States that are incredible thinkers. And you, my brothers, need to know what they're saying. And you, my brothers, should also be willing to share what they're saying. Because that's part of your Masonic experience too, is it not? The brethren you meet in your direct travels and in what I'm going to call your indirect electronic travels. Be human. You've got to kind of put a quasi face to your Facebook page, okay? And That means simply this. When people reply to something, don't be afraid to reply back, okay? But do so with a degree of empathy, do so with a degree of respect, and do so with a degree of kindness. Also, the other thing, don't be afraid to delete a comment if it's just not supposed to be there. Yes, I know it's got some sort of memory now, but the faster you delete it, especially if it's an incendiary comment, the quicker you can kind of, mitigate the issue. Because guess what? Yeah, we got some naysayers on the Grand Lodge Facebook page that are not Masons. And you know what one of the neat things about this? There's a delete and ban feature. Where you actually ban people. Don't ban a brother. Okay? Delete the brother and don't be afraid to call them and send them, I just want you to know I'm deleting you. I deleted your post because, quite frankly, it was kind of out of line. And tell them why.
Don't do it online.
That's right. Don't do it online.
Don't embarrass.
Yeah, no.
Don't do it. That's in line with don't Facebook. Don't drunk Facebook. Right?
Remind the brother in the most friendly manner possible.
Yes. Remind the brother in the most friendly manner of his fault. Right? So let's take a look at the Grand Lodge Facebook page. First things first. You want to upload a great profile picture. Right now, I've uploaded 3 different profile pictures over the course of the year. Number 1 was the picture, actually 4. One was the picture of Bruce as the new Grand Master. One was our old, actually more than 3. Our old Grand Lodge seal, our new Grand Lodge logo, an image of our Christmas card, and now this, the Grand Master's bolo tie. But you notice I didn't do it consecutive days. I kind of spread it out. You want to make it interesting. But when you upload a picture, don't upload a picture that's got a whole bunch of words in it. Because let's be honest, it shows them it's about that big on the page, right? No one's going to want to read that stuff and no one's going to try. So make it as engaging a picture as you possibly can. The other thing is leverage your cover photo. This is something that you should update, at least monthly. At least monthly. Upload it, and you can do a lot of different things. Like right now, for example, the cover photo on the Grand Lodge Facebook page is the Grand Master surrounded by the youth groups. And it's a cool picture. You should do that. So like, if you had a big old crowd feed and there were 300 people there, take a picture of that and post that as your cover photo. If you just got installed, take a picture of the officers, post that as your cover photo. If you just bought in a brand new candidate and he's, some sort, and maybe he's like Lakeside is about to initiate the State Master Council of DMLA. I'm hoping that will be their cover photo. Your building could be your cover photo. A neat picture from your lodge could be your cover photo. Again, I'm not being very, this is stream of consciousness. You don't have to be ultra creative, but you at least have to show something that's going to engage the people. Remember what I said earlier, engagement is the secret sauce of success on a Facebook type page. So yes, leverage that cover photo. There's a section there called About. And a lot of people don't fill the About section. This is important because people are going to click on that About section to find out who you are. And where you are. And how to get a hold of you. And this doesn't take that long to complete. Really simple. You can go back to your archives, find out about the history of your lodge, post the click thing, show your address, show your contact info, and you're there. That's all you really need. Make sure, by the way, it's good contact info. Right? Don't have somebody's old email address that doesn't work anymore. If you're going to have the lodge phone number, make sure that there's an answering machine on the other side.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing more frustrating than calling a lodge and there's no answering machine on the side. And all you get is ring, 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 right? You don't want that. So complete your About section. So that's the front part of it. And then start your updating. And somebody asked earlier, how do we do this? Well, in some lodges, what you do, you make it a matter of responsibility. Like what do we do? We know that, for example, the stewards are in charge of refreshment, right? We know that. And it's an understood thing that when the next steward comes on board, or the next group of stewards come on board, they're in charge of refreshment. And it happens every year like clockwork, does it not? So you find an officer, or you find an interested brother, or an interested group of brothers, and let them know that you're in charge of the Facebook page and keeping it up to date. But then on top of that, because of the fact it's kind of a new innovative thing, you got to stay on top of that. Once they see that you're serious about having a Facebook page, they will regularly update it. They will regularly update it. But if you leave them alone for too long, they may find something else to do. The other thing is make yourself someone who can add content. So yes, you have your brothers who are in charge of putting content, but make sure you yourself as well are able to add content to the Facebook page. So that way you can go in and make adjustments. For example, Jeff Brunson is allowed to make adjustments to the Facebook page. So it's not unusual to see information about DMLA pop up on the Facebook page. I've made the same offer to the other groups. No one else has taken me up on it. Why? I don't know. I'm a nice individual. I'm not that hard to find. So, so again, it's all about, you have these plans of succession for everything else, right? Now you have a plan of succession for your Facebook page. And that's how you do it. So you make sure that and again, you engage in that as well. So let's talk about some apps on Facebook that are going to be handy for you. Number one, the event page on Facebook. This is how you tell people what's happening. The who, what, where, when, and how. Because what will happen is when you do that, it'll post to this calendar. And so you can click on any one of these events and see what's happening. You know what else ends up being helpful to you? See these little pictures of people down here? That's when those people have birthdays or anniversaries. Sometimes that's difficult to keep track of, isn't it? So one of the things that happens when you look at your page, you're going to say, oh, look, it's so-and-so's birthday. I'll send them a little note. Or I'll make sure I send them a card. Or you can just follow the calendar and know that in the month of, in this case, January, you've got all these things happening so you can plan for them. And you can set that up for people so when you do that, you can tell people, check out our calendar. And it's an easy, simple way for people to take advantage of that. I talked about setting up posts in advance, and there's some, okay. Y'all have trestle boards, right? There's a newsletter app. It's been around for some time. There's a newsletter app. You can create your trestle board. You can upload your trestle board to this newsletter app, and if you have it as part of your Facebook page, you can upload your trestle board. Because remember, everybody thinks all I can upload is pictures. No. You can upload your trestle board to your Facebook page, and now you kind of mitigate that timeliness issue, right? Because it's great to do trestle boards. Don't get me wrong. I love trestle boards. I still like reading books. Yes, I have a Kindle. I still like reading books. I like paper. All right? People like paper. They like getting mail. But you mitigate that, that timeliness issue, or that I'll look at it later, when you put it directly in front of them. So it's an app called Newsletters. Here's this app called Post Planner. This is where you can set up all your posts to show up, on a weekly or bi-weekly or monthly basis. So that way, you can just get it all in line. They'll post at a certain time, and it looks like you're online all the time. Now, I'll be honest, I'm online all the time. But that's for a different reason. Okay? But the point being is that these are apps that are available to you that a lot of people don't realize exist. Everybody knows about the calendar app, or at least most people should know about the calendar app. But the newsletter app and the post planner app are great ways for you to stay ahead of the game with respect to your Facebook page. So again, what's the payoff for doing this? Fan engagement. People are going to be coming to your page on a consistent basis. You're going to increase, or at a minimum, enhance your communication, because you're using multiple ways to communicate, but also you're using a way to communicate that you can self-update and not have to worry about doing all the time. I said earlier, Facebook pages are updated more often than web pages. Why? Because they're easier to do. You just change your status, right? That's really all you're doing. You update your status, boom, it goes up instantaneously. And you'd be surprised how quickly people respond. You expand your reach. Guess what, folks? people in Azerbaijan that are going to know about your stuff.
Just gotta get them to show up.
I know. You know, we need to pick people up. That's what we got to get in the boat, go to Azerbaijan, get them over here. But here it is. Remember I said that the fastest growing population of Facebook is between 35 and older? Look at this. 20% of the people on Facebook are between 35 and 44. 60% are between 45 and 54. 11%, 55 to 64. Let's go back though. 25 to 34, 20%. Can we use these age groups?
That's prime real estate right there.
It's prime real estate for us, isn't it? It's all about opportunity, is it not?
Okay, here's a big question. How do you get people to look at your Facebook page?
The way you get people to look at your Facebook page is you start sharing it on your page. Start sharing it on your network, and then encourage other people to share it on their network. Like I said, we went from about 300 people in July of last year to close to 2,000 today.
I just like it.
You just liked it? Yay!
So then you're saying it's two.
Yes, you can promote the page, it's going to cost you, but it can happen organically just by looking at it.
So that would,
Hang on, guys.
So by default, that would mean that we would have to have our Facebook pages too, and then you share it through your network. So,
Yes.
Yeah, and then you can set Facebook pages to be open to the public or closed. Obviously, the lodge ones are open to the public.
The lodge ones are open to the public, but there's different levels. Like for example, you can make your page secret, and of course, basically that defeats the purpose, right? You can make it a group page where it's invitation only. So you just start sending invitations to all these people. Or you can make it public. Okay, and if you make it public, that's where you have to be a little more, that's where diligence comes into play. For example, the Grand Lodge ladies have a Facebook page. It's invitation only. The Grand Lodge page is public.
But individual lodges. Public.
Individual lodges, you can go public or invitation only. It depends upon the scope that you want to practice. All right? But I look at it this way. If you have a website, is it not public?
Right.
So what's the difference? There really is no difference. So the thing is that you just, the easiest way to do it is to send it out, is to build your page, share your page on your individual network, send your page to the Grand Lodge, I'll share it on our network, so people in Azerbaijan can see it, right? Okay? I'm gonna drive that joke into the ground, Let me know when I hit China, okay?
Yeah.
Am I close? Am I close to China? Okay.
By dinner.
By dinner, I'll be in China. Okay. That'll be for the next group, though. So yeah, we're happy to help you leverage that, but it's an old thing. You guys got to get started. Get it on yours. We'll get it on ours. We'll let people know it's out there. I mean, like I said, I'll share when the brethren from Central Washington, from Wenatchee, sent me their trustful board. I'll put it on the Grand Lodge Facebook page, and over 300 people have seen it within an hour. I'll get 300 likes within an hour. It's it's that kind of leverage that you can use. So please take advantage of that. So, are there any other questions at all?
Yeah, Jim, I've got one.
Yeah.
Concerning the use of certain graphics, square and compass, Masonic symbols, things like that, how free are we as webmasters, Facebook masters, etc., to use things we find that appear to be genuinely authentic, square and compasses, it looks okay, it's kosher, all that? Because I get a lot of pushback from various elements within my lodge, fairly high up, that have influential power over this sort of thing, about, oh no, we can't do that, we got to get Grand Lodge permission if we're going to use any kind of Masonic symbolism at all, blah, 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 blah. It takes months, I got to go to committee, got to get permission, on and on and on. How free can we bypass all of that, or is there a set process?
Let's talk about that. If you're using the square and compasses for commercial purposes, okay, like you want to, the shirts that are being out there, you want to go, or you're using it for you would put them on a Little League jersey.
Right.
Or if you're going to, buy an ad, the Grand Master would like to know. So it's going to be that way. But there's something to also remember. And here's the tight wire thing you got to work. The square and compasses are also in the public domain. No one has a copyright on the square and compasses. Okay. So if you're using it on your website, we're going to be okay with it. Unless, of course, you're linking to, sites that you shouldn't be linking to.
Right.
Okay? I mean, I look at the organization, I work for the agency I work for. My department, even though we're focused on retirement, there are certain retirement sites we can't link to because of the commercial nature of that organization. So, for example, I work for the Department of Retirement Systems. It makes sense. Yeah, we should have a direct link. We should have a link on our page to ARP. No, because of the commercial nature of that organization. We can, however, link to Social Security, right? We can, however, link to the SEC, but we can't link to like TD Ameritrade. Okay? So again, that's what you're looking for, who you're linked to. So again, like I said, that's the title. Remember, the square and compasses are not necessarily copyright protected unless you're in Pennsylvania. Don't ask. They copyright everything in Pennsylvania. Okay. But the thing is again, be judicious. But like I said, if you're using it in the public, if you're using it for like if there's some sort of commercial or advertising, things like that, yeah, you have to get that on your page. It's not going to be that big of a deal.
Okay.
Back there. So any question? Okay. So anyway, just it didn't come up there. I'm sorry. I thought it would. So, for those of you who haven't had a chance to look at the Grand Lodge Facebook page, I encourage you to do so. You're going to find, now I'm going to turn it around since it's not going to show up here. You're going to find that, like I said, this is what it looks like right now. Well, this is what it looks like right, okay, come on. Put it down. Sure. This is what it looks like right now with the image of the Grand Master, with the youth groups. And then you see right there's the current edition of the Masonic Tribune. So you can link on that, and then of course some pictures of the of last night, and then of course I have a little blurb about Douglas MacArthur, who, as we all know, is a member of Nile Shrine, and by the way, was made a Mason at sight when that happened. Pictures from your district meeting. So if you had a district meeting, your pictures are going to be there. If somebody there's the new Grand Lodge poster. So all kinds of stuff there for you to watch, as well as links to other places. So I encourage you to take advantage of that, so that way you can kind of see how we build a page, and if you want to copy it, I don't care. If you have a lodge page that looks exactly like the Grand Lodge page, I really don't care. I will ask this though, that your calendar reflect your events.
Yeah.
No, don't pout. They gotta reflect your events. Okay, that's all I'm asking. So, with that, any questions from anybody?
How about
Twitter. Twitter is great. I love Twitter. I do Twitter, and Twitter's a great way to let people know that your trestle board's up. Because remember, Twitter has got what, 140 characters. So one of the things you can do, you can type in quickly, "See our lodge trestle board," and provide a direct link to that, and then they'll get that. And the other thing with Twitter, what you want to do is, and this is true with anything, true with your Facebook page, you want to follow similar pages. So, if your lodge has a Facebook page, follow other lodges' Facebook pages. That way you'll get those links back and forth, right? So follow other Grand Lodge Facebook pages. Those are really cool. And on Twitter, follow key Masonic leaders. If you see Masonic leaders that are out there that have a Twitter handle. Because guess what? Some big time Masonic minds have Twitter pages. We're talking guys like Art De Hoyos. We're talking guys like Brent Morris. These guys. These are some great Masonic educators. They've got Twitter handles. So take advantage of that. But remember, you only have 140 characters to communicate with Twitter. With Twitter. So take advantage of that. For my LinkedIn, I post a direct link to my blog. And I post that my current employer is the Grand Lodge of Washington.